Hello there, and welcome to JJ Painting. I am JJ, and today we are going to be talking about, as you can tell from the title, my top 5 and my bottom 5 units from the Primaris range. I think it's kind of a time we should do this now because the Primaris range is now broad enough that we've got a really good sense of what there's going to be both now and in the future, because some of the stuff in the codex hasn't been released at time of recording this video. But on top of that, we've had time to play with these units and to see what they do. Now, I think for myself, one of the things that I want to say up front is that most of these units, in fact all of these units, are useful in some way on the tabletop, both in a more relaxed and more competitive style of play. But for me, the reason I'm putting things in my top 5 is because they're units that brought something new to the table that Space Marines hadn't necessarily done before, or they're doing something which I never thought I'd see a Space Marine do, or they're reimagining the way we normally use them, for example, or making the most out of concepts we've had for a while but haven't done a huge amount with. My bottom 5, on the other hand, are ones that didn't really bring anything new to the table, took no risks, didn't reinvent the way we look at Space Marines, which is kind of what I feel Primaris have been able to do and had the capacity to do, and also ones that I feel just don't really fit very cleanly in terms of style of play for a lot of people out there. And for today's video, we are going to be painting this lovely little model here. Yep, have a look at that. Nice, isn't it? So, we'll be painting that, so without further ado, let's crack on. Fifth worst. Blade Guard. Do you know what? I'm going to say it. I like the Blade Guard models, but I think that having nice models is kind of where it begins and ends. They don't bring anything new to the table. They've actually very much doing what Terminators and Vanguard have been doing for years. And when I say Vanguard, I mean First Company Vanguard, not the new Infiltrator Vanguard. Ultimately, Blade Guard really are riffing off of that. They are a close combat unit. Yes, that's true. They are one of the main close combat units for Primaris. Nice idea. They are the first company unit outside of the veteran intercessors, but ultimately that's all they are. They don't have any unique rules, they don't have any unique equipment, apart from the Neo-Volkite pistol arguably, but I'd say that's not enough. I think that the Blade Guard needed to come in with something a bit more to elevate them to being a bit more interesting. I know that this blank slate approach makes them easier to fit into the established chapters like Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Space Wolves, but when you're coming in with so little, I think it does make it very easy for them to be passed over for something else like, I don't know, a Scout. Number 5, the ATV. Well, first of all, it's just a fun-looking little model. Finally, Space Marines can join all the other races out there in the Wacky Races fun times. In fact, that's probably going to go some way to helping there be peace in the 41st millennium. You know, imagine that, 40k Grand Prix. Finally, the Space Marines have a vehicle that they can actually enter with that isn't just a tank. ATV takes this place for 2 big reasons for me. First of all, it does look very cool and I do like it, even if it does have a few impracticalities. Other reason, it is quite fun, you can have a few of them, and they do look really good on the battlefield along with everything else. They play well with most chapter tactics and I think they look really fun, so I'm going to take that as my 5th place. 4th worst. Alright, people out there who are going to get annoyed with me, feel free to start throwing, but I'll be honest with you, 4th worst for me is the Redemptor Dreadnought. It's okay as a unit overall, it plays well enough, but ultimately it's not bringing any new ideas, it's carrying bigger weapons, that's fine, but again, that's about it. It's slightly bigger, has more wounds, and has slightly more guns on it. But again, if you were going to tell me that there's a Primaris Dreadnought out there, I'd say, okay, I'm up for that. Fair enough, tell me more. But ultimately, it's not a Primaris Dreadnought, because if you look at the keywords, the word Primaris doesn't appear there. It's just another Dreadnought to add to the 5 in plastic we've already got. The Invicta Tactical Warsuit. Alright, so I'll be honest with you, I don't understand why there are so many variants of the Dreadnought out there. Seen one half-dead Space Marine walking around in a mecha suit, seen them all in my opinion. Doesn't matter if he's usually rather half-dead Space Marine in a mecha suit, a very old half-dead Space Marine in a mecha suit, a very old half-dead Space Marine in a slightly taller mecha suit, or a very old undead Space Marine in a mecha suit that happens to be a slightly funny shape. Doesn't matter to me, any of those things. Finally, we have a perfectly alive and healthy Space Marine in a mecha suit, and that mecha suit can also go into full-blown stealth mode. I think it's great, it's hilarious, it's exactly the sort of thing Space Marines really needed, and it brought a nice veneer of originality to an army that I don't think was creatively circling the drain, but was definitely starting to recycle a few of its ideas. Definitely one of my favourite units in the Codex. I really like the fact that they can genuinely sneak. They fit in really well with both Imperial Fists, Raven Guard, White Scars, which I think is very much being 3 of the compass points on the chapter spectrum. Obviously, the Imperial Fists have a very set way of playing in some people's minds, as do Raven Guard, as do White Scars, as do things like Blood Angels. But I think they fit really well in all of them, and they can do really good stuff when they're on the field. They can engage both at range, they're pretty solid in combat. They've got some really interesting weapons as well. The Incendium Cannon, which is basically a giant murder flamer, and also the Iron Hail autocannon is a nice idea. It definitely brings a lot of firepower to the table, and you can do quite a lot with it. It's definitely the one I'd recommend for anyone out there who's a little bit tired of just having dreadnoughts and wants to do something which is a little bit more flexible and brings a little bit more to the table overall. Wonderful. So, number 3. Third worst. Alright, so third worst is a very recent entry, but I was turned off of it very quickly for, first of all, a complete lack of interest in what it was bringing to the table, and also just not really getting the point of why it exists. The Firestrike Servo Turret. A turret for Space Marines. You know, the Imperial Guard have their fire teams with their heavy weapons for years, and I always feel like there's been this weird bit of jealous for Space Marines, but I can't possibly think why. It's Space Marines. You carry your guns with you that everyone else needs to set up on a tripod. What's the problem, guys, really? And when you think of what the Firestrike Servo Turret actually does, all it does is take a couple of guns off vehicles, puts them on a turret that can move 3 inches, and absolutely nothing else. Again, no special rules, just some guns on a turret that are meant to do what exactly? Sit still and shoot? There's a whole bunch of other kits out there that do this, and a whole bunch of other things within the Primaris range that do this. I don't get why it's here. I honestly don't understand what the appeal of the Firestrike Servo Turret is. The Suppressor Squad. Suppressors, I think, are genuinely one of the funnest ideas that have been brought to the table since the introduction of the Primaris, for 2 big reasons. First of all, they are a lovely little blend of 2 things we already had, the Devastator Squad and the Assault Squad. I know the Inceptors do something similar, but for me the Inceptors still feel a bit too much like they are an Assault Squad. But the Suppressors, they carry massive great autocannons and have jump packs. It's ridiculous enough that I find it really entertaining, but useful enough in the game that I think it's the sort of thing everyone should take seriously. Again, they've got lots of flexibility. They have the death from above thing where they can just drop down and start shooting things from a range, and they can move quickly and get their heavy firepower to where it needs to be. There are other fast things in the Space Marine Codex that can do this as well, but none of them look quite as distinctive on the battlefield doing it. And I think in a lot of minds of people, there's this very set thing when it comes to jump infantry for Space Marines being close support, close combat units. But never before have we had these guys where they can genuinely shoot things on the other side of the board and then move quickly to another place whilst being able to be effective at most ranges. They definitely got a little bit better in the most recent update. They've got a few more shots now, and their suppressing fire ability is a little bit more easy to access. You don't need to kill anything, you just need to hit. I think that's a really nice thing. Again, they fit really well into most chapter tactics. They do fantastically well. I didn't realise this, but they do fantastically well for things like Imperial Fists and for Iron Hands, obviously, and for Raven Guard and for Salamanders. So again, they fit really well into everything. The best one I've seen so far is where they get charged, they jump backwards out of range of combat on top of a building and then start shooting the opponent on the floor below. It's a wonderful little hit and run tactic, which is the sort of thing you wouldn't expect to see, but I really do think it's an excellent little addition. So that's my thought on the Suppressors. The second worst for me is actually one of the more tragic ones on this list, because I really genuinely, I am on the side of this unit and I really wanted it to be something special, but ultimately it just hasn't quite been realised. And the Phobos Librarian. You know what, Space Marine Librarians, you've not exactly been world leaders in terms of psychic abilities. You're often falling behind things like Eldar, Tyranids, Gene Stealer Cult, Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Demons. In fact, I think just about everyone else has better psychic abilities than you, but there was a little ray of promise and a little ray of hope for me when I saw the Phobos Librarian's Obscuration Discipline. Wonderful with psychic powers and a genuine step forward for you, and then you only gave it to one Librarian who can only cast it on about 5% of your army. You've made it something which is only available to a certain member of the elite. I hope you're proud of yourself for hiding your best powers in the place where only your scouts can use them. Number 2, the Eliminator Squadron. First of all, they are the Space Marines that are literally called Eliminators, which I think is a bit of a flex, but you know, fair enough, more power to them, I say. But they are the sort of thing that I think we've always wanted Scout Snipers to be. Snipers are one of those weapons in 40k which have never really been that powerful in small numbers, and rarely have we ever seen it where you only need 3 of them in a squad to be really effective. A sniper rifle is not typically seen as a powerful weapon in 40k. The Eliminators changed that this time around, with a sniper rifle that has 3 different settings, as well as there being a bloody las cannon version of the sniper rifle as well on a squad that also can go just about anywhere, and also move away from combat with the bolt carbine, which is also kind of cool. It has to be said that they do bring a lot to the table as well. They are not exactly the most original idea out there, because again, snipers have been around forever and scouts have been around forever, but the fact that the idea of a Space Marine assassin or a long-range assassin has always been around and in the popular imagination, it's nice to see it realised, firstly in plastic, and secondly in a manner that's both really interesting to play and fits across most of the chapters. It brings a lot to the system overall, and I don't really believe that anyone could really find a massive amount of fault in it. Maybe the size of the units, but that's not unique to Eliminators. There's a lot of units which could be bigger, but I think they've got a decent squad size. It makes them feel flexible, it makes them give them a presence, and it keeps them nice and balanced on the tabletop. So good work, Eliminators. Definitely one of my top choices. Now, here we are, my bottom unit. Now this one probably doesn't come as a surprise to most of you guys, because again, I was hoping time and time again for something to be added, for just one little thing to lift this very unfortunate unit from the meh pile and into the elevated pile. They're probably the least seen unit you will see just about played anywhere. Every other option in most other places exceed it and do more than it could possibly do, and it's very easy to see why. I am of course speaking of the Reaver Squad, the first Phobos unit and the first to be released back in 2017, and also the first to be forgotten when literally all the rest of them came out. Again, returning to the Codex with very little in the way of anything special, very functional as something of a distraction harrying unit, but doesn't really bring enough firepower like the Suppressors, doesn't bring enough combat skill like basically any of the units I've mentioned today, and doesn't really have anything else distinctive apart from the fact that it can sort of do what units with jump packs can do, but not quite as far. So it's not surprising me that Reavers seems to have been the first Primaris unit to start falling out of general circulation, and you know what, I've forgotten about them already. I recommend you do the same. Number 1. This was one where it was tricky. There could only be one top choice for me, and there was a toss-up between this and the Eliminators, I think. And when it came down to the Primaris, I think some units are better than others, some of them have more appeal to me, some of them I see always having a longer shelf life than others, but when it came right down to it, there's only one unit, really, that beats out all the others for the top choice. Eliminators was one of them, and the other, pause, is the Intercessor Squad. Okay, let's first of all say I mean both Intercessors here, but let's be honest here, they're pretty much the same thing, just with different equipment. The Intercessors are finally the basic Space Marine that I think everyone was wanting for years. Multiple wounds, lots of attacks, the bolt guns are at their most effective when they're in the hands of an Intercessor, and if you've seen my video about Primaris and Firstborn, I did make the point of saying that Tactical Marines, as much as they are a very versatile unit, that's almost entirely in the equipment. Intercessors are similar, but Intercessors go a step further with it. Space Marine tactical squads can be equipped with a variety of different weapons. Intercessors always have a bolt gun. It's 3 varieties of bolt gun, but it's still a bolt gun. But to be fair, they are bolt guns that do different things. You have sniper bolt guns, assault bolt guns that are basically regular bolt guns but just have a bit of extra range. And then of course you've got the Intercessors with chainswords and bolt pistols, which to be fair is something that Primaris have over Firstborn Marines, and then on top of that you've also got Intercessors that you can pretty much upgrade just to be veterans and run them as your first company choice as well. I like that, I think it's a good thing, and that's not to mention heavy Intercessors who are just bigger Intercessors in Gravis armor, and wait till they come along, god, I reckon they're going to be very popular. But I think that's the thing, is that when you do measure the worth of an army, you do have to remember what it's going to be standing on. Troop choices are really, I think, what make the strength of just about all armies in 40k. It doesn't matter if you're Space Marines, Guard, Tau, or Dark Eldar. If your core choices don't hold up either to your playstyle or to your own standards, then your army's never going to make you happy. But the other reason they're my top choice is because they really do actually highlight the strengths of what Space Marines are today. They're closer now as they are in the lore, these superhuman warriors who can take a lot of damage before getting taken down, that can dish out immense amounts of firepower or absolutely wreck your opponents in close combat. They're not invincible, but they are very powerful, and I'd say that between Firstborn and Primaris, we are the closest they've ever been to as to how they're presented in the lore, and it makes playing them that much more satisfying. And of course it means when you're playing against them and you beat them, it's even more satisfying than it's ever been before. But again, what are your top 5 choices for Space Marines, or Primaris in this case? What do you think? Are there any on here that you disagree with? Are there any on here that you think should be higher or maybe lower? Let me know in the comments. So that is our top 5 and bottom 5 videos for the Primaris Space Marines. Let me know if there's any units you think that should have been on that list, and any units you think shouldn't have been on that list. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I try to post my videos on Wednesdays and Fridays from this point onwards, and have your comments in the below. Like, subscribe, all that good YouTube shilling stuff. Goodbye, and have a lovely day.